And we'll just get started. Good evening, everyone. And I'm Dr. Pranita. Most of you may be aware, know me, but those who are not aware about me, I'm working with SINE for past 4 years, and here I'm taking care of programs related to BIRAC, and I'm part of incubation team here. So I welcome you all on behalf of SINE for this session. Some of you are aware about SINE. So SINE is a technology business incubator, which is hosted by IIT Bombay, and we provide start-to-scale support to startups, innovator, or entrepreneurs. We also are partner for various government programs. One of the program which I would like to mention here is the BIRAC BIG, and the reason for this is the call for this program is currently open. So currently 23rd call for this program is open, and it will remain open till 16th August 2023 till 5:30 p.m. And it is one of the largest early stage biotech funding. So it gives you an opportunity if you have any interesting idea in bio-related segment. It could be healthcare, it could be agri, clean tech, industrial biotechnology, anything which has bio part or application in related areas. You can submit your application. It's the support from ideation to POC. And it is not just funding opportunity, but it gives you a lot of visibility, connection with the ecosystem, and opportunity for the follow-on fundings with the BIRAC or other government agency, as well as, we have seen that the startups funded by BIRAC, they get also a good interest from the investors. So this is opportunity, to commercialize your product. So I'll say, if you are interested in applying for this program, SINE is one of the BIG partner. We are an implementation partner. So do reach out to us, do talk to us, write an email to us. We will put in our email address in the chat box. Do let us know if you would like to apply for this grant. Now, moving on to our today's session. Some of you are continuously attending, sessions, various sessions which are conducting under Power our Biotech series as well. So today we are also going to talk about one of the important and very interesting, topic. That is navigating the regulatory pathway, medical device and software AI technologies. And for this session, we have invited Ms. Meena Dalal here. She is Director Clinical Operations at Trial Guna, which is CRO. She also holds the master's degree in clinical research. Meena has more than a decade experience in the CRO industry. Previously, she has been worked at Max Neiman International CRO, IQVIA from North Carolina, which is a leading global provider of advanced analyticals technology solution and clinical research services to the life science industry. Meena has been instrumental in setting up a team unit at IQVIA regional office, Kochi, Kerala. And she has been part of phase 2, phase 3, 4 cities for metastatic oncology, neurology, dermatology, new drug discovery clinical trials, phase 1, phase 3 new vaccines development for COVID-19. And she's also mentor for several incubators, including CCAM, Derby Foundation. She's also an empaneled clinical research regulatory expert for Bangalore Bioinnovation Center, BBC. And NSRCL IM Bangalore as well. There is a lot to tell about Meena, but I think this, with brief introduction, I welcome you, Meena, for this session. And before I hand over the session to you, I just have, would like to announce for the audience that we request all the participants to put their questions in the Q&A chat box. We will address the queries towards the end of the session. You can also raise your hand. We will unmute you, so you can directly discuss with Meena your concerns regarding the regulatory, challenges. But before Meena can, share her experience, some of the questions which we received during the registration process, which I felt really, they are interesting, and some of them would also, help us to focus on some of the segments of this discussion. So I'm just going to, read some of the questions, Meena, so that if you could cover during the your presentation, or in fact, we can discuss post your presentation as well. I hope that's okay.
Sure, Pranita, please.
Yeah. So, one of the a few questions which are very focused on, to know about regulatory process of for AI algorithm, for software, AR, VR, or AI in medical devices. So those are related to mostly AI algorithm, software, coding. Is the code written for medical device product comes under a regulatory purview? Or any specific coding standard to be followed, or AI data privacy, confidentiality as per new rules of regulation. So those literally focused on those part, AI related. Now, some other questions were basically on the implant side. So implants, regulatory process for bone or dental implants. Some were on the diagnostic kits. Once some of the, I think, students, they have mentioned that if they have developed a testing kit, let's say at academic level, what are the next steps with respect to the regulatory affairs? So that was related to diagnostic kits. And then there were some products which this applicant mentioned on breath monitoring or wearable devices. Nowadays there are so many wearable devices in the market. So wearable devices which can be, I hope they can be considered as a medical device. So regulatory aspect of those. And some are on the drugs side as well. But however, I would like to mention that mostly we are going to focus on device part. But if there are couple of questions and if Meena is comfortable answering them, we can do that as well. Some of questions on the CE and European, regulatory and marketing, that side. Again, that was not a part of or scope of this particular session. But if there is anything and Meena is comfortable, we are okay with that as well. One interesting question was on the medical digital therapeutics, the software related to that. Nowadays, that's another coming area where people are working. Now, they would also like to know if there is any regulation for those available as well. And one last question, that Class A, Class B device with no predicate available in the market, does it need to go through clinical trials, or they can directly get the approval kind of a thing? Those are some of the questions, Meena, I just wanted to read out before you start. Now, if you could, cover some of them while you are presenting, that'll be really great. So with this, I hand over the session to you.
Thank you so much, Pranita. And thank you for pointing out these questions also. It will be very useful to go through case studies in this discussion. Good afternoon and welcome to all the participants for this session. And I'm very glad to be able to discuss with you all. Please feel free to raise your questions in the Q&A chat box, as well as if you have something further, you can always email to Pranita. If there is something we are unable to address in this call, we will get back to you via an email for those. So confirming that all of you are able to see my screen and hear me clearly. All of you are able to hear me clearly and see the screen? Please confirm, anyone?
Yes, I think we are able to see here. Yeah.
Thank you, Pranita. So today's discussion in the light of startups and in the light of we all trying to gain a space and occupy the right place for the technology as well as the softwares that we bring in the world. And how do we navigate through the regulatories? How do we navigate through various country requirements to be able to address them is what I will focus on. Just to give a brief introduction, my name is Meena, and you may see my profile on LinkedIn and such as, but I'm also, as you know, a small-time mother of 2 dogs and take care of my own household. And the company that I founded and I run for the last 5 years is called Trialguna. And because we are all in the same space, I would like to very clearly present the intent here for this discussion. And if we want to work on quality and we are here to focus on the customer requirement and be based on what we do exactly and what kind of value add it brings, then there is a space for us all. We do not have to think about the larger companies that are available or the size of our firm or the leanness or the tight budgets. But as long as we focus on quality, we are all able to be there. And that is why the driving force behind the services we provide is that we want to be able to support all the small and medium-sized companies to become the best version of themselves. There's also another point here that I would like to highlight, that when you are doing your, you're building a product, let's assume you are a student group, or you are a group of researchers who is just finishing their PhD, or you are a group of researchers who has worked on a previous grant and now intending to go towards another research. You will not always be able to go to the biggest of the companies or biggest of the CROs available to you, or hire consultants 24/7 on your platform. So that is why it is important to be able to read certain regulatory documentation, understand what you require, and accordingly proceed with it. Here I have taken an example of a very simple urology monitor and device. I am sure if many of you are working in this line, you would have seen a ton of these. So what basically a urology monitoring and device functions on is it helps you in doing a lot of in vitro performances of kits, like your rapid tests at home for the patient who is suffering through this. And also it has been, a good scene that wherein you are able to monitor the patient's health constantly via a lot of laboratory parameters without bringing them trouble and using the home care services. However, many a times when such devices are produced and they are sold in the market, the startup companies, especially because they're in a chase to bring so much more to the world, and they are hungry for striving into the work that they do, they forget that who is the end user. And in most of the cases, the end user is a patient who actually needs this kind of a support. However, there is no training imparted, there is no soft services provided to this patient, and they are able to procure the test kit from the market, they are able to procure the monitor from the market. The family is unaware, absolutely in shock that how to use this. Same thing happens with Ryle's tube, the feeding tube that we give to most of the patients. And just the end user doesn't know how to be able to comfortably live with the fact that there is an external stimuli which is present, and they have to control their reflex and gag feelings. So at that time, if there are value add services created by your startup or with your company, that helps in not only having some kind of an education guide for the nurses, for the paramedics, and for the family involved, but also gives out a bit of a value add services via your distribution network. It creates furthermore avenues for you to become a household item, instead of creating a great idea and then after a while it being dipping down in the market because usability was poor. The more you accessibility, the more information around it can help you with that aspect. So that is one thing that we have learned. So when I say that be better, and given this example, so the next question comes is, how do we become better? And that's where we'll start addressing some of the concerns that we have. So one thing we have to do is, which is the most of the trouble, is that we have to adopt to our policies. It's like, in South India, especially, what we do is we step into the house and we put our chappals outside the house. So similarly, as are your policies, you have to adhere to policies. And as we address these questions, I asked, when do I start looking at the policies that I have to adhere to? When do I know that I have to now start looking at ISO certification, or now I have to update to the clinical trials? So one thing that I would like to say is the reading up and understanding of the regulations around your product has to be the first thing that you start right from the time that you are in the development stage 1. You do not wait to reach a certain level of the product development, T6, TL6, TL7, then to be able to look at, oh, now what do I need to do next? Policies and regulations should go hand in hand right from the time of your innovation. So if I was to take an example of certain regulations that are a very big support to you all, I hope you can see my screen. I'm just switching off my video for a while.
Yes, Meena, yes, we can see the screen.
So if you see, one of the major policy, or rather the ISO certification that most of the teams who are working initially miss out on and are later identified about is QMSR, Quality Management Systems and Reviews. US FDA released a guideline in this April 2023, in which they have spoken about what is the draft guidelines for AI/ML. And in that, they have specifically targeted that how do we actually understand the precedents for all our change controls, and how do we
Meena, we are not able to hear you.
Is it better now, Pranita?
Yes, your screen is also not shared at this moment. It says you're started sharing the screen.
Yeah, I had stopped presenting and I'm presenting again. Is it visible now?
At least not for me. Priyanka, would you like to confirm?
Can anyone in the chat box also please confirm?
No, it's not visible from my side.
Okay. Yeah, Meena, I think your screen is not yet visible. Okay, let's just take a minute. And yeah. If you could
Visible
do,
now?
yes. Okay, if you
Great.
could put it a full screen mode.
Yeah, before doing that, I just wanted to quickly touch upon this guideline, which I was just mentioning that it has been released in April 2023, just a couple of months ago. So if you look at this guideline, the title is a bit misleading because the title says marketing submission recommendations for a predetermined change control plan for artificial intelligence, machine learning enabled device software functions. Though misleading, please understand this particular guideline addresses two concepts. One is PCCP, which is your predetermined change control plan. And the second one it addresses is MLEDSV, which is machine learning enabled device software functions. This is very important because this entire draft guideline, if you read through, it talks about that how do you go about understanding what do you do when you are working on a platform or on a product which is based on the machine learning, requires a lot of simulations and data to be filled in for your understanding, and is having an user interface. This, when can you understand this? You can start understanding better when you understand your quality management systems. So at quality management systems, I would like to hear from some of you what your understanding is of quality management systems.
Meena, I think we are in the webinar mode, so they may not be able to unmute themselves.
On the chat mode, can they write on chat, Pranita?
Yeah, yes, that is possible.
Okay.
If some of you would like to write something in the chat box, please go ahead.
The reason that I asked this is because quality management systems, we all have seen the ISO 13485 and we all start worrying that what exactly it means. How do I develop
sorry.
on this?
Sorry, Meena. Actually, you can put it in the Q&A chat box. I mean, chat is disabled, of course. Okay. Otherwise, chat box is flooded with things. And we have to keep looking at two places. So if you have anything, please do write it here in the Q&A chat box. We can take it up from here.
Sure.
Please go ahead. People are posting that chat is disabled. That's why I just thought of,
Okay. No worries. So once they start putting up something, what is the regulatory approval? Okay. No, first I would like to understand only on 13485 what your basic understandings are. And the reason I say that is because quality management system, though it has a very, very large platform to be addressed, I am sure all of you have at some point in time gone through some kind of standard operating procedures. So thank you for the honest feedback. If you are unaware of what quality management system is, I'll go back to saying policy adherence, the previous slide, which was addressing the same thing in a light manner. What we intend to say is you make a set of behavioral aspects, a set of disciplines around your work, and you follow them through just to ensure that day to day your any kind of ad hoc or any kind of a people change is not affecting the process. For example, the simplest example here is when you join any company, or if you have worked with any corporates or even an educational organization or an incubation center such as IIT SINE, you will have your admission card or you will have your ID card, which would identify your name, your yeah, I am at regulations. I'm not stuck here. I am talking about 13485. I have not shown any data around it. So when you do that,
Meena,
huh,
Meena, I'd just like to interject here. If we can take some example of, let's say, any healthcare, very simple device for the ISO part also. If you can do that, yeah.
I am taking this example here. If you can see my screen, I'm going to be
it's
taking
not-
an example of risk management.
Okay, okay.
Okay. So when you guys look into ISO 13485, it basically talks about adherence to a certain set of rules and principles. And that I have not put it up here because I think it's rather that everyone is aware of it. But if you want, I can put here ISO. Let me rather put this way. Okay. So when you look at the 13485 ISO, it is very, very simple. And it talks about what do we do, how do we do, what kind of principles are involved. I'm trying to open an Excel sheet just for your, as you said, to discuss about it. So I will hide some parts of it, but if you can see this, it talks about all this. Okay, I'm just gonna hide this column. Can you see? It talks about these simple plans right from your organization
it's
level
visible.
chart. Yeah. So what is the organization level chart? It basically defines that it does not mean you have to define hierarchy in the form of CEO, CFO, and so on. What it means to say is it defines delegation of tasks. Which task is delegated for which person? And please remember, in a startup, you are always going to have multi-level functions, right? Not an individual will be given only one job and nothing else. And when you have this, it's going to be a lean functionality. That is what we all strive for. So that is what it means to say organization level charts. Define scope, quality, policy, and objectives. Herein, you have to define two objectives. The first objective is what does your firm stand for? Okay. And the second question that you define is what does your device stand for? If you compare your device here, then if you have read the definition of any clinical trial or how US FDA defines it, then comes the intent and intention and therapeutic usage. For example, if I'm talking about a forceps, okay, and I'm saying that a forceps will be used in a surgical procedure, wherein if there is any kind of a superficial injury of the skin, we are going to be able to cut through that part using this forceps. Then this device becomes a class A device because of the superficial surface involvement and because of its minimal usage that we are putting out. However, the same forceps, if I say that it is going to be used in a retinal surgery and is a device to be used in OT and only when there is an involvement of retinal surgeries, then though the device does not change in its appearance, but the intention of its usage and the therapeutic area in which you are using changes. Thereby, what increases is the risk profile. When a risk profile of a product increases, then increases the classification, or as you know, risk classification is based on ABCD that we say, or 1, 2, 3, 4 is low risk, moderate risk, or high risk. Higher the risk is higher the classification of your system. How do you identify that? For that, we have this risk-based classification systems. In this, you can categorize and subcategorize and identify a risk indicator for your company, for your product, and very clearly put down that what are the risk levels that you see at as a company level, as somebody who is funding you, at a vendor level, at your project identification level, at your development of the product level, and so on. This risk sheet also is available in the resources on US FDA website, and so is this. This helps you in understanding what is required. Similarly, when you say quality manual, nobody is asking you to abruptly start writing a quality manual. What is rather expected from you here is that you understand what your product does, right? I'm putting it out in a very simple language for all of us to be able to be on the same page. When you address what your product does, you also say, how does it do it? Right? What kind of skills are needed to be able to do this kind of a work? Then we also write about why these skills are needed. What are the safety parameters that one should be aware of? For example, when we go to the X-ray room, it's usually very clearly written that you have to remove any metal or any other chain that you are wearing. If you have any metal implanted, you have to tell before you enter into an MRI room. There is a specification on the number of hours that you have consumed water and food for before you go into the usage of any machine. So all that comes from the R&D during the quality manual development. Please remember, this is not a one-step process. You do not develop your manual and you finalize and say, this is my manual now. So ISO 13485, or as many of you might know it from school days as 9001, or as we also know it as 21 Code of Federal Regulation 820 from the US FDA, all of them very clearly state one thing, and that one thing is you have to understand your device, you have to understand what are the risks involved, what are the benefits involved, and how do you mitigate your risks. If you identify and understand this, then you will be able to
Meena, we lost you again.
where did you lose me, Pranita?
Yes. Yeah, but your presentation is here. Yeah.
Okay, so I was saying that when you follow these simple templates of understanding, implementations of step-by-step questions, like I have mentioned here, as per the requirement of regulations. And when you look at the other SOP, which, the presentation talks about as 14971, basically the risk management, which is also available in the form of a simple Excel sheet that helps you in writing down and highlighting risk indication and description at every point, thereby being able to weigh it and then formulate a mitigation plan around it. Then your first question gets addressed, that you do not need to think about doing your policy towards the end. You start with it from the day one. The other question, which was about the software usage or the digital therapies that we are using. So please know that though CDSCO has a platform, the regulations are still very much in the formulation method. So what you can follow is, you can follow IEC 62034, the medical device software and software life cycle processes. Now, please break down every segment into, at least 10 components. To discuss this, I want to take an example of another company, which is called as REN. So if you look at this company, Renelex, it basically is a very advanced company. The reason I'm picking up their name is they were also a startup company 10 years ago. And as all of you will know, dialysis works on a very simple process. And the simple process is diffusion method. right? That is how it was discovered initially, that how does dialysis work. So dialysis was identified to be working on diffusion and of course creating a gradient, and thereby allowing that the ions as well as a lot of the harmful materials are transferred from one to other place, thereby reducing the inflammations of the kidney. However, later on it was found that the more we do the dialysis process, there is oxidative stress created in the body. And there's also cardiovascular complications which are identified. Now, could this have happened in one stage? From the time that dialysis was identified to the time to understand that oxidative stress and cardiovascular diseases are going to be around it, has been a journey of the discovery of dialysis itself. So what did Dr. Shyam Vasudev's company or Renelex did was, they had understood the same principle and they worked on the same principle 10 years ago. And his aim when he wanted to establish this company was to be able to bring accessible machines and accessible dialysis platforms to India. Because at that time, if you read back, there was a lot of, what you can say, import of the machines from China and so on. So this company started their first prototype in 2016. And in 2016, with their first prototype, they went ahead and they requested for a Class C, stating that, okay, we have done all our bench testing, we have DST, Department of Science and Technology, supporting us, and now we would like to go ahead and conduct the clinical trials. One of the complications that they faced at that time was, there were 3-4 questions used. Number one, 510K approval if they have it or don't. Number two, what is the predicate device that they are using with themselves? And number three, why are they not going to do preclinical trials for the dialysis unit that they have formed? To answer to each one of this, first of all, let me give you a background. Dr. Vasudev himself is an IISc alumni. So he has been on the nephrology board for a couple of years. So he did know what is the technology and what is the science involved in it. But still, number one, they had to organize a special committee, which was organized towards 2017 end. Okay. Please remember, the company started in 2013. The first prototype was ready in 2016. Towards 2017 end is when they had their special committee organized, which had alumnus coming from IIT, AIMS, and the Tech Development Board of DST. And once they all came together and they saw the predicates, which was a German made that had been used for this company, and they approved it. Post that, in 2018, Times of India was the official newsletter that released the post stating that they are going to start the clinical trials in GSS Medical College, Mysore. Even though they started their clinical trial in JSS Medical College, Mysore, it was 2018, and 2019 is when we were all towards the end hit with COVID. So from 2016 to 2019, they spent their time in getting the committees to agree, getting the regulatory approval for their Class C device by presenting their predicate device information, showcasing with the special committee that preclinical was not needed, and then going for the quality control. So one lesson here that we all have is, if you look at what your regulations are asking for, this is one of the checklist of CDSCO requirement, which very clearly says that what is the, look at it please till point number 14. Here it very clearly talks about what is expected from you if you are a hemodialysis center or you're creating a hemodialysis machine from the CDSCO board. And like this, there are various classifications for which CDSCO provides you the query and information. For example, just let me check if I have opened it here. So please do not go to this website, because it will take you to a different work altogether. The first step that you should do is go through their general question and answers. I have put up a couple of links also below in my presentation, but what you will also want to do is please read through these. Every month and sometimes twice in a month, these GSRs are released by the organization called CDSCO, which is the regulator in our country. And these are all downloadable. However, one concern that is, and that is a major concern, is you have to figure out which one is related to which one and then only read about them. So for that purpose, my suggestion would be go to the CDS or USFDA website. Here you can also find the classifications very easily and then correlate with the CDSCO one. Otherwise, it will be a lot of questions that you will not understand. Doing this, what we understood very clearly, and yeah, here, as promised, I have put up the links here for you guys, which you can pull out one by one. In my opinion, please look into the USFDA one. Look at TUV SUD because it gives you a lot of information about what kind of certifications you should get and you could get. I have also attached a 28-page Q&A, or rather FAQs from CDSCO on IVD. So understanding and having technical knowledge about your device is very important, of course. However, it is more important to understand if you are putting your device down for a classification, what is the purpose behind that? You either have a predicate or a partial predicate, or if you have none, no predicate or partial predicate, you have to look at IMDRF guidelines. If you are specifically focusing on IVDs or you are focusing on software related. If you are focused on any other device which is not coming at, under the performa of your, what you can say, CDSCO right now, then please look up at US FDA. Yet another challenge will arise when you look at US FDA is preclinical animal trials. Getting the preclinical in vitro studies done in India is rather easy. You have the small animal facility, spread across Mysore, Delhi, Bangalore, and many more places. But the large animal studies is where the trouble comes. So for your information, large animal clinical studies right now are being done in Ahmedabad and Mehboob-Nagar. However, if you think your product does not need that, you will need to build a solid case around it. You will have to look into the costings of it. So if you are taking a funding of initially 50 lakhs or 1 CR or 2 CR, you need to be able to start spacing it out with the help of your risk management tool from the beginning. That how much am I going to budget for what kind of an activity? You do not need to hire a consultant for quality management systems preparation. That only happens when you are running to this SOP or this certification towards the last minute to add it as a label to your product. That you should avoid. You have to work on it, make it, internalize it in your team as a process from day one. Risk management and financial mitigation especially is important, because please remember, you will have to look at a predicate or non-predicate availability. You will have to see if you need CE or 510K approval based on the geographies that you need to set out to. That is why the intention, therapeutic usage, and the geographical distribution in which you would want to market your product is very, very critical. Third thing you need to be very clearly understanding is, if you are going for large animal studies, do not go outside India. There is 2-3 facilities which is available in India. There are incubation centers who help you in connecting with these centers, and you can do there. In the risk management and assessment, I would also say that though you do not need to hire consultants for every step, what you need is multidisciplinary team. So if you are an engineer by education, please make sure that you have an advisory board, and not all the advisory boards are on paid roles. They also come to you as mentor roles. So make sure that you have advisory roles. You have people who are consultants and yet they are coming to you, similar platforms like your incubation centers, and they are understanding the requirements that your product has, be it a shelf life assessment, sterility requirement, technical assessment, connecting you with one of the forums of doctors and having your product being tested and spoken out for in various conferences and such kind of a discussions. The manufacturing plants, if you are a visionary, you have your own decisions and ideas, it does not mean you have to have your own manufacturing plants. Currently, one of the research centers, or rather the Telangana Life Sciences is one of them, and there are a few more in across India. In Gujarat also, there's another manufacturing complete hub of the plants. These guys have their certifications in hand. You just need to ask the right questions with regards to your safety, essential performance requirements, and electrical safety concerns wherever there is a touch involved between the device and the skin of the human, thereby saying biocompatibility. Identify those and get these outsourced at a cost which is much more desirable, because nobody is going to judge you or assess you on the basis of saying how much infrastructure you have created. What they are going to judge and assess you is on the basis of if you have adhered to a certain discipline, if your team follows a certain functionality, and if you have done the right tests with the right certifications involved. So that is where we would say that it is important that you identify your collaborators, your advisors, and your vendors. The other question that, for example, was asked that if we have identified a great test kit, and how do we go about it further? So, for example, like I was talking about IMDRF guidelines. Though this is a 2021 guideline, this guideline holds good and is a basis of a lot of CDSCO guidelines, which you see for the classification as well as division of how in vitro devices will work. So if you go to this page by page, here you will be able to assess that they are very clearly defining it. Which is the principle that you look at? How do you define the purpose of any device? How do you read the references and scope of it? And then how do you get into the definitions? Also, you can listen to a couple of podcasts which are available, and what they help you do is convert this entire guideline into a simple checklist for you, the way that we have done and we have showcased here, and help you assess and understand the risks of it. Here you will see that they are talking about yet another guideline. If you want to follow risk assessment, please take my word on it and follow the standard 14971. You do not have to have your ISO certification done for each and every ISO that you come across, as long as you have enough documentation that you have been following. For example, if you have an implantable device for a bone or a dental implant, you have to see which class it falls into, B or C, based on the risk assessment. And once you do that, if your manufacturing plant already has a 13485, your team does not need to immediately jump into it. What you need to do is ensure this becomes an internal part of your system. You guys abide by this. You have the documentations and standard operating procedures, job responsibilities defined as per this, and then you can apply for it and receive it. That is acceptable by the regulators. These are some challenges that do come for a lot of people, and you can easily override them or overcome them using this. Other thing that you should look into and register for is Sugam portal. So Sugam portal basically is your CDSCO login if you are a manufacturer or if you are a inventor who wants to go for a clinical study, as well as your permissions for the marketing. Here it gives you the option of logging in. Please do it in the evenings, because then traffic is less and the government websites work better. You can enter your details here. As a CRO, we are a registered one, and our outlook is very, very different. Here you have to register yourself. Once you register, you can also sign up here. When you sign up, it asks that what is the purpose of your registration. Either you are a cosmetic, blah, blah, or you are asking for a test license. Test license is when you are asking for conduct of clinical trial. Or if you are any other company that is looking for. Currently, what you have to go under is you have to go under either the purpose of formulation you have to go for, or you will have to start your purpose from the dual use. So submit either of this and from there log into it, because once you apply for the marketing license, you would need to have your own CDSCO login credentials. Similarly, when you are conducting a clinical trial, if you see here, if you noticed here, ethics committees are also registered. So please, whenever you are initiating to conduct a clinical research with any hospital or anybody, please make sure that they have a registration number given by CDSCO to them, and that is very much valid and in function. The other place you must look out for is CTRI, the Clinical Trial Registry India. It functions under the name of ICMR. Before you conduct any clinical trial, you have to be a part of CTRI. And CTRI data automatically shows up on WHO platform, ICMR platform, and DST. It also shows up on Elsevier platform and Cochrane, because Cochrane is a software, again, ML/AI software, which pulls in all the registered clinical trials across the world and puts them under the same platform. So this gives you a free publicity even when your product is under development. Here also, please sign up. You are a new applicant, sign up as a new applicant. Delegate somebody. If you are the main inventor or CEO, you can also take this as a dual responsibility. Sign up under this and make sure that whatever clinical studies you conduct, be it a proof of concept or be it a full-fledged clinical trial, it is registered on CTRI before you actually go ahead with it. There is also a lot of methods of doing.
Meena, if I can interject here for a second.
Sure.
So Meena, since we are on the Sugam portal and you are also showing that CTRI, website, if you could also walk us through a steps, as some of these people would have, you also choose that test license, on that drop down list. Now, if you could also walk us through how once I have the product or prototype, I'm going to complete and I would like to understand how I'm going to do this. What are the steps right from the beginning? What needs to be done sequentially? What needs to be done parallelly? If you could also tell us about that.
Sure, Pranita. I'll not go in a lot of detail of that. The reason is because I'll have to log into my credentials. So for that purpose, I'll not log in right now, but I'll show you here that what I exactly mean. Let's assume that you applied for the license and you have received it. After that, what will happen is there are logs and forms like this, which will appear on your, one second.
So Meena, this test license which we are talking about is something which we have to apply before we go for clinical trials or approval from ethics committee. Is this the first step should be on the table?
Yes.
Okay.
So let me just see if I can open something to show you the flow. I understand what you are saying. So I'm just going to try and open if I have any. Okay. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a minute, Pranita, so that I can hide sensitive information.
Sure, Meena. I think that would be really helpful because those are some of the questions, we received in the registration that, what are the steps exactly they should follow? And in fact, some questions were on the test license as well.
Okay. So just a second.
Sure. And if we could also talk about like what all documents they need to apply for test license and post that.
Yeah. So here I have hidden certain information. If there's anything sensitive, please let me know. This, for example, is a very, very simple review that I'm showcasing. That what are the documents like you said. So before you apply for a clinical trial, you have to have a protocol, informed consent document, complete insurance for the study, and this insurance includes indemnity as well as insurance for the safety and efficacy support of patients at the hospital, electronic data capture forms or the case record forms as they are called, and investigator brochure, or as you can call them as user manuals. Once you have these, what you need to also have is the relevant documents which are supporting these documents basis. Like for example, for a protocol and informed consent form, what you need to follow is the QSME guidelines, quality, safety, multidisciplinary and efficacy guidelines. These are a part of the ICH GCP guidelines. And we usually follow the efficacy E2 guideline as well as E6 guideline when we are making any of our documents. So that is what you will validate these two for. Your insurance procurement can be from national as well as private insurers. I would request you to go with the government insurance like Oriental or something, because they come at a much lesser cost and the validity is across the India, so you will not have any kind of a concern. Electronic data capture is more so becoming increasingly required because you have to have confidentiality, data integrity attached to it, and these are easier to review and monitor. Investigator brochure or the user manual, it will be a version of your user manual that you have been developing from the level of initial development of your test product or your software that you have been working on. Once these are available, what we mean by saying is your IB batch approval is, this is when you will go for a kind of an application to the CDSCO in the form of test license. Test license for medical devices is different from test license for clinical trials. In clinical trials, we go for the test license of 03 and 04, whereas in medical devices, you will be going for a different set of licenses. What I can do, Pranita, is share with you that document. It becomes easier for your team to understand rather than me taking through here. Is that okay? Because it's a very step-by-step guidelines. So that is available online also.
Okay. Maybe we can just, close it here on that point that you need test license for which you need certain documents which can be discussed later. And when is that, we have to, somebody has to identify which sites or how many sites they should identify for the trials, and CTRI registration, that when they would be doing that.
Yeah, Pranita. So as you apply for your batch approval, parallelly, what you will also start doing is EC initiation and submission. So guys, when you applied for CDSCO, at the same time, you can apply for ethics committee submission. Please remember, ethics committee will not give you the complete approval. They will give you a conditional approval at this point in time, which would clearly state that if you receive the CDSCO approval, will you get the EC approval? And once you have the EC approval as well as CDSCO approval in hand, after that only will you go for your CTRI application. You will not be able to apply to CTRI even if you want to before you have this. For example, I'll showcase one quick one to you. Yeah. So please don't read much on this, but if you look at this, it is very clearly stating that for a particular study so-and-so, you have been listed like this on the CTRI. If you confirm only, will we go ahead? And this, they will not ask you to confirm until and unless they have received the CDSCO as well as your ethics committee approvals. So with those two in hand, please go for your CTRI. Once you answer to all the CTRI queries and mails, then you can plan your sites. When you are planning your sites, at that time, please remember, per site, you have to take an IC approval. We do not have centralized ethics committees in India still. That is a very good concept in Europe and US, but in India, we still don't have it. What we have is individual hospital has their own ethics committees and they give you the right approvals. So you need to, when you have per site ethics committee approval, with all that, you have to identify how many patients is your goal. If you are targeting 50 patients and you know your indication is on a class C device, you have to estimate your risks accordingly, the way we have discussed before, and then as per that, identify how many number of sites you are going to have. So this will fall into your vendor assessment after your protocol. Once you identify the sites, it's a standard clinical research practice to have a site initiation visit, which also denotes two things: site training as well as delegation of duties at the hospital level for your task. Following which, once the last patient last visit is completed, you will have your query and data filtering, etc., etc. Following which, you go for your statistical analysis, and in parallel, you will be doing your monitoring visits And once your statistical report along with your clinical reports are available to you, that is when you will be going ahead and applying again to the CDSCO stating that, hey, we have our data ready. And now we would like to come back and show you, and you will request for a meeting that is called as the SEC meeting. That SEC meeting can only be requested via the Sugam platform. Pranita, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, of course, of course. Just one quick question here on this, Meena. I understand that trials can take time as based on their product and, kind of a study they would like to do. But however, the preparation work, which you mentioned, Sugam portal, CTRI registration, ethics committee approval of individual hospital, how much time they should understand that these activities will take and when they should start, approaching or doing this, start this activity.
So Pranita, once they are at a prototype level 1, once they have developed a prototype and they are going for their safety assessments, at that time, they should be having their Sugam portal registration done. Because once you register Sugam, then you will register CTRI, right? This is you're doing registration at a company level.
Yes.
So they should do their company level registrations when they start their safety studies. Once they are completing their safety studies and now they want to go for the clinical trial route of saying that, okay, efficacy studies is where we would like to be. At that time, what they have to do is they have to prepare their protocol. They have to prepare their related documents in parallel and apply for one SEC, Subject Expert Committee meeting, by submitting the draft protocol stating what are the objectives, what are the outcomes they intend to look for, and how do they intend to address it. When this meeting takes place and they get the approval, the CDSCO approval, in parallel to that, they can have their EC conditional approvals. So the timeline for CDSCO approval is about 8 weeks. If they go beyond 10 weeks, you are entitled to go to their office in Kirti Nagar, New Delhi, and raise the concern, and they will be forced to address it to you within 24 hours. However, please also bear in mind that if your protocol has gone to them and does not have clarity and there are too many flags at it, then we cannot hold them liable to that number of hours accountability. Similarly, ethics committee, if you are looking at hospitals like AIIMS and so, you will have a wait list of 6 months. Please, any ethics committee, let's say that you like 10 doctors, ask the 10 doctors where they would be conducting this clinical trial. And once they state out the names to you, please look up those hospitals and see if they have an ethics committee registered. If they have the ethics committee registered, you can reach out to these hospitals. If they ask for a nominal fee, like 500 rupee or something, like I know St. John charges about 200 rupees for giving their ethics committee SOP, so does AIIMS. You pay that nominal fee and you take their standard operating procedure. Their standard operating procedure clearly tells you the waiting period you have there and what is the frequency of their meetings and for which therapeutics. Like Nimhans, Kidwai, what you can say, I just mentioned, HCG, your AIIMS, these guys have different frequencies. Similarly, if you go to smaller hospitals and if you go to independent ethics committees that are going to be supporting, you'll be happy to even get once in a month opportunity of any kind of a meeting being held for your document review. So that way you need to plan out that what is your timeline and what are your non-replaceable items, like which doctors you are just not going to replace. Or if you are going to do it stage by stage, like in phase 1 clinical trials, Pranita, we usually follow that. We start the study with 2 doctors, parallelly wait for the ethics committee meeting of the 3rd doctor, and so on, we go on, just to ensure that we don't lose on the time. And by creating those cohorts, we are also getting the constant safety and efficacy data that we can save and share as a safety update reporting to the other hospitals along with the government that we share.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Amina, on this.
I
I'm okay.
think
Sorry
I've
to
taken a
interject.
lot of your time.
No, no, I'm sorry if I've interject you. If you want to cover something else, we can even do that for another 5 or 10 minutes.
No, this is what I wanted to cover. And I know that
Okay.
it's a lot because like I mentioned, just a couple of guidelines that I have mentioned and these 2, 3 Excel sheets, which I will share with you and you can in turn give it to them.
Mhm.
If they only focus on this also, this will take 4 good weeks of their time to be able to come to the point of asking the questions to the regulators and then doing their registrations and so on. After that, the next step that you asked, that how do we go about applying it, that also again, like I said, we will create a flow chart and provide to you. Not a major concern. Major concern is first deciphering and understanding how does our industry and how does our product work. And that's why the challenges that I had written was having the right kind of mentors, not bringing our not taking the questions or not taking the doubts on self, rather it is sticking to the product and using the funds very wisely. Other than these, I
Yeah.
think this is
Yeah.
all my takeaways will be for this session, Pranita.
Okay. I think one quick question from my end, which I remember from registration question, is that somebody would like to know difference between pilot and pivotal. In the for medical devices, that's probably the term they have heard from some of the people. So
Yeah.
what is generally the difference between that?
So for example, Pranita, in clinical trials, we also use another term, which is for your, we call it as, are you going to be conducting a proof of concept study? Or will the study be going to be a hospital level study? So when we say that, what it means is, like, first of all, let's understand that any clinical trial is either a clinical investigation or we are doing an evaluation. When we say we are doing an evaluation, it means there's a partial predicate or a complete predicate which is available, and we are comparing if our product is falling in the lines to similar behavior or is it having certain differentiation. That's why the challenges that I had mentioned was, that not being a copy of somebody else, which means even if you are bringing in a dialysis machine which is being sold to the customers, and what challenge you address is what differentiates you, right? Dialysis machines have been coming to India for ages. Stethoscopes and digital thermometers and even using your pressure checking machines, these all have been existing in the world for ages. But when you are addressing it for an Indian customer, what is it that you bring to the table? Is it affordability? Is it accessibility? Is it ease of usage, right? So what are you addressing when you create your product is very, very important. And when you are doing an evaluation, it becomes a part of comparison, investigation when it's a new device. So pilot and pivotal, when we say, pilot is a term used for regulatory support. You create or conduct a pilot study, thereby you are able to safeguard yourself legally and say, look, this was a pilot study, thus I did not do sample size calculation, thus my result, even if it is clinically insignificant, it still allows me the opportunity to go ahead and conduct another study or try to prove it from another hypothesis point of view. So instead of pilot pivotal, my suggestion would be go for a proof of concept study. There the regulations are easy on you. And once you have your proof of concept, then go for a complete statistically justified clinical trial.
Sorry, I wasn't there. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Meena, for that. I think there are questions on the chat box. I'll skip on my questions because some of the questions we have already answered. Some I'll try to see if we can accommodate towards the end. I am going to take a couple of questions first from the Q&A chat box, and then I'm going to unmute. There are 2 hand raised. Let's try to take the questions. What are the regulatory approvals required for an AI chatbot design to give non-pharmacological interventions for period pain?
Okay.
Okay.
AI chatbot designed to give non-pharmacological interventions for period pain. So are you saying that this chatbot is going to be giving information about how to manage pain during menstruation cycle?
I think so. I think
Okay.
so. Maybe if Aiza Salman, if you are here, please do raise your hand. We would like to unmute you for more clarification. But in case if that is the okay, he has raised his. I'm going to unmute you so that you can ask your question. But please be brief in your question, so we get more people to unmute. Yeah, please go ahead, Aiza.
Yeah, no, so it is an AI-based chatbot and it will give a clinical advice regarding menstrual health. So that's what the product is. So we're just asking what are some of the regulatory approvals that we'd require for this product?
Okay, so again, I'm going to ask you to please help me break this question into further several parts. Number one, when you said giving clinical advice,
Yes.
does it mean it will be doctors who are supporting in this kind of a profile and they will be giving their advice? Or does it mean that you have asked your doctor 100 questions and out of the 100, whichever is the most relevant, AI will pick up on those key pointers and answer that?
Yes, the second one.
The second one. Okay, so Aiza, when you go for that kind of an option, number one, that regulations are going to ask you, please again go back to the regulations of the US FDA that I had first displayed today, which talks about your AI, ML and software administration. What you need to understand and be able to project is number one, that what are going to be who are going to be your key resources, your organization chart as 13485 asks for. In that key resources, what qualification do they have to give these opinions? Number two, you will have to have these answers validated from the forum of similar nature. Then number three, your chatbot, which you're developing, you have to showcase that this chatbot works in XYZ manners. This is the coding and software behind it, right? And this will not be put down exactly as a device right now in India, but you will be processing it as a intermediate user functionality.
All right.
The clinical device you will be applying with the intermediate intermediate user functionality request, and on that basis, once they review it, they will ask you for all this data that I just mentioned on a very brief note. Of course, there'll be user manuals and all behind it, and then you will be receiving the approval. If you want to put it out as a claim that we are a chatbot which is designed for this particular function and use those claims. Otherwise, chatbots are available on a lot of websites and they don't really get that kind of importance or the level of medical device, stage.
Yeah.
The minute you want to use it as a claim, you have to have this kind of a documentation and yourself clearly showcased on the CDSO website that yes, this team has done this and they are registered with us.
Sure, but just a clarification, the chatbot will give non-pharmacological interventions.
Yes.
Yeah. So like the same regulations would apply, right?
There will be regulations applied. Like I said, your chatbot could simply say that use this Ayurvedic medication, or your chatbot could say that use the heat pad. But if somebody uses the heat pad and their skin gets burnt, then there will be a concern. You will be legally liable to be sued because your chatbot did not specify how hot it could be and for how long it can be used, right? That is why what I meant when I said that your questions and answers will need to be validated, will need to have a underlying clause to it, because though it's a great cause, we would also want to ensure that you are not easily legally liable for any kind of a mishap that may happen. Like, for example, if you suggest that the patient should lie down and the patient did that and she did not go to the office for 3 days, and later on the patient should not sue you saying that I was only following the advice given by a chatbot.
Sure. Understood.
So
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Aiza, for joining us. Okay, then let's just unmute Khushbu here as well. Khushbu, just go ahead with your question.
Hi.
Hi, Khushbu. Is this process similar for assistive devices as well? Is that your question, Khushbu?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I've not read the previous one. On a side note, would be great to see some ChatGPT kind of application on top of these information so that people like us can interact with it and get the step-by-step information. I agree with that. Similar for assisted medical devices. Like, can you give me an example, Khushbu, what we are talking about?
Yeah, so assistive technology, they would not be invasive, as in if we just talk about, some prostheses or some orthoses.
Give me one example, Khushbu.
You can, okay, for example, lower limb prosthesis, the artificial leg.
Right. So what would you want to have around it? I'm sorry, I'm not able to read all the notes. That's why I'm asking you to please detail the question.
So Khushbu, can we have your question here? So it's a lower limb prosthesis. What do you want to know about the regulatory process for the same?
Yes, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so for example, I'm an innovator and I'm just, trying to work on lower limb prosthesis. So I just wanted to know, like, would these regulations be similar?
So number one, Khushbu, you will have to have 3 levels of testing with you. After you have developed your product and it is viable to be used, one will be the biocompatibility testing. And so, like the product, what is the material used, all those certifications you will need. Second is the safety aspect of it, that how many number of hours a patient can use it, and when does excessive sweating or excessive usage cause pain in the lower limbs, or the nervous stimulations, how do they work, and so on. In those cases, you'll fall under the implantable removable devices under the category C, and there are guidelines available under the US FDA for it. Please look at that. The same ones we'll have to dilute down for working on the CDSCO. You will be asked to do a proof of concept study once your safety data is available. In proof of concept, you will end up taking max 6 to 10 subjects, proving that your product actually works. And then when it works, previously what it used to happen is they used to ask for collecting post PMCF, post marketing clinical follow-up data. However, now what they will ask you to do is a pivotal clinical trial, or as we say, a statistically identified significant clinical trial, which means your sample size will be defined by the hypothesis you create, stating what is the confidence you have in the product. That confidence interval will become your stat number. And that clinical trial, when you conduct, you will be able to, get the right approvals, Khushbu.
Okay, thanks. I think, Khushbu, hope we have answered your question. I think we have one more hand raised. I think we will unmute them and then we'll take up question from the chat box, Q&A chat box. Yeah. Datta Guru Prabhu, please go ahead.
Yes. So I have a device which is actually for people who are 100% deaf. So what happens is that it's a smartwatch-like device. It picks up the sound and it sends vibrations to the skin. So we train them to pick up the vibrations as sound. These are 100% deaf people. So what will be the line of regulations that I need to go through? And there is a skin contact. So can you just give me an total overall perspective, budgeting, and even like time it would take? Just
No, I cannot. I'm really sorry, but I cannot give you all of the answers that you want to seek.
Okay.
What I can give you rather is, Dr. Prabhu, is I can give you a regulation, which clearly talks about that when you're converting sound to a vibration, or when you're converting the sound waves to a feelable waves, what kind of a testing you require.
Okay.
And you will have to, however, tell us that what your product does, what is the scientific principle behind it, which countries you intend to market it out in. And with that information, I'll share with you some regulations. Once you decipher those, or you want to understand, we can have another discussion one-to-one about it. And from there, then comes the level of development of it, and post that comes timelines, and post that comes your costing. So I'm sorry, I can't immediately support you.
So I have done the POC part in the lab.
Very good.
I don't. Yeah, at that I didn't knew about the regulations. So even regulations apply for POC as well. Doing POC as well.
Very much, very much.
Okay.
No worries, it's not too late. We can definitely set up another discussion with Pranita, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, sure.
I think Dattaguru, what you'll have to do is that, what Meena mentioned previously, some QMS part and, all that, which can be done at the level, at this early stage and all that. You can do it.
Okay.
And of course, we can discuss further. However, I will, request audience to limit your questions on the fund side, because it is all subjective, what kind of a device you have, what kind of a, regulatory process you'll be having and all that. It all subjective, and it will be very specific to each and every case. However, there are clearly some fees which are regulated, and clearly some fees which needs to be uploaded, paid somewhere on the website and all. Those are standard. Probably those could be the remain standard, but other things will change. So please limit your question regarding funds. And thanks, Dattaguru, for joining us. Shyam, please go ahead. I unmuted you. You have certain questions in the chat box as well. Please go ahead.
Shyam, you're on mute.
Shyam, can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
Is it audible now, madam?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is Shyam from Osteoforge Medtech. Okay, and we are a relatively new startup, like a month ago, and we have a patented biopolymer. Okay, which is made from two. It is a composite biopolymer, which is made from two already FDA approved polymers.
You have
Okay.
muted. You have to unmute.
Is it audible now, madam?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So my question now here is like, at what point of time should we start making our QMS before we enter into preclinical studies? Do we have to start our QMS right now and then enter to QMS, or is it like, is it actually, it's a general question for any
Yes, sir.
startup?
Very great.
Yeah.
It's actually a great question, because that is one of the key takeaway. You please start your QMS right from the day when you form your company. Like
Okay.
how for forming your company, you need to register, you
Yes,
need
yes.
to create a GST, you need to have your board of directors very clearly defined. Same way, quality management system is going to be the structure, the discipline that helps you in forming your company very easily, very nicely as you grow.
Okay.
So QMS helps you right from the company level to the product level. That's why some of the questions in one of the sheet that I had shared were ranging right from the company level, wherein they started with organization chart level, then came down to the mandatory SOPs, then spoke about engineering and various HR, IT, and so on departments, and
Okay.
so on, so on. So it is, you can consider it as a framework to help you with your company. So
Okay.
please start it right from beginning. Keep on developing, keep different versions of it ready. If in 3 months you feel, no, we have updated this, update that also.
Okay.
So
Okay.
by the time your product comes to the preclinical level, you already have a draft ready. That
Okay.
time you don't need some, consultant to come in and try to do magic. You
Okay.
have, your company has imbibed the process, and you will be able to very easily adopt to the further changes.
Okay. And the extension, madam. So if I have to, when I go to the preclinical studies, do I
Yeah.
have to manufacture my product in ISO 1385, 13485 certified facility, or preclinical?
Yes, sir.
Even
Yes,
for
even for preclinical, because like I said, you are setting up a discipline.
Okay.
And let's assume that, okay, let me ask you a simple question. If I gave you a set of tablets which are manufactured in regulated good lab practices, GMP and GLP
Yeah.
place, and I gave you another one which is locally manufactured in my kitchen, which one would you rely more?
Yeah, obviously.
Right? That is question
Yeah.
number one. Question number two is, if I said the next batch I'm going to make is going to be in a very good lab. However, this batch is in my house. Please take it. You will not believe it. The reason is because you lose consistency. The
Okay.
sensitivity and the specificity of your device is going to improvise by having consistent behavior. So even if you're doing a preclinical study, even if you're doing a packaging testing study, even if you're doing a shelf life study, you please have to ensure that batch by batch, there is a consistency in the quality of materials used and in the process, as well as the location or the place who manufactures this for you. That's how you improve on your process, and you bring in a trust factor with your product.
Okay, thanks, Shyam, for joining us. Okay, I think Indrajit, please go ahead. Indrajit, you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
So Indrajit and myself, Pradeep, Indrajit and I are sitting together. So the question is from me to Meena. Meena, actually, we are working on a product which is more like a diagnostic aid, and the decision or whatever conclusion that will be done by the doctor after seeing the information. Now, with that in mind, wanted to take your advice on this. Is that the same level of regulatory clearance and procedure would be required as a diagnostic software, AI-based diagnostic software, or it is slightly different for with something that acts as an aid than a software diagnosis itself?
Okay, so just a quick question here, both Indrajit and Pradeep. When you say that you have a diagnostic software, let's assume that you're looking at certain features and a certain aspects of the disease, and then your software is going to give a question or going to give an imaging and highlighting a certain
it's
things.
on image. It works on imaging. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
it works on imaging, but you are not associating with any kind of AI or ML behind, or having all this data stored
It is
on
there.
your.
It works on AI. Yes, it works on
Yes.
AI. It looks at the images and gives certain inputs that these are the areas that needs to be looked at.
Correct. So then in Rajit, yes, it has to be treated with the same stringency. The reason I say that is, look at it level by level. Level 1, you have your data captured for X number of images and so on which basis your current product or current software will say that, hey, in my opinion, this, right? And then on that opinion, the investigator further draws his or her opinion. So when you are giving an opinion, and also you're trying to draw inferences on the basis of your stored data, you are creating a simulatory situation. That means you are trying to draw inference which can interfere with the judgment of an investigator. The other reason that you have to also look at it in the same stringency is because this is your level 1 development. From here, you would want to develop it further and further more, and take it to a place wherein you are able to say that, irrespective of the investigator or the senior doctor being available, the junior doctors also can be supported by my software in secondary healthcare systems, or even in rural and taluka hospitals, right?
Right.
So for that purpose alone, you will have a second application going to CDSCO when you come to that level. And this primary application and primary data that you now go through the regulatory process will be an aid to you. Your timeline, your financial budgets, and your clarity will be very, very easy.
Understood.
So please treat it the same way.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Just a follow-up. How may we
Indrajit,
reach out? How may we reach out and
probably
connect on a one-on-one discussion?
Indrajit, we'll have to stop here. We will share the credential of Meena here, or you can write to us. We can connect you with her over email. Okay.
Sure.
So I'm going to
Thank you.
mute you. Thank you for joining us. I think there is one parallel question on this from Ria Khurana in the Q&A chat box on the AI software, image diagnostic, basically. I think you have already answered that question while you were answering for Indrajit. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to take few questions from the chat box now. Sham, we have already answered the question. I think there's a question: if device is non-intravenous, operates independently of patient, but also has operating software, what is the classification? I think.
Can you tell me which question it is?
Thermalingam.
I got it. If the device is not intravenous, operates independent of the patient, but also has operating software, what is the classification? Can you please give us an example of what device? For example, if you're talking about an infusers, which is generally used in ICU setup, wherein the patient is given certain dosage at a certain time interval, this device is not touching the patient body at all, but there's a tube which is going to the patient. Similarly, you have monitoring devices and so on, right? There the classification changes, and based on the therapeutic condition and the intended usage of your product, we will be defining that whether it is going to be a class B or class C, for the identification of it. I cannot say it with this information. Please don't hold me liable for that. Second thing that you have to do is see any device, most of the device, even if you look at it as simple as the ones which use negative pressure to clean a particular wound management devices, though they are not coming in direct touch with the patient, you have to see what is the impact they have on the body and what kind of a usability they have, what interaction does it include. And on those basis, the categorization as well as the guidelines have to be followed. Like wearable devices, I think Pranita, you had touched in the beginning. In wearable devices, like Apple Watch, most of us wear them. It very clearly says we are not a medical device if you buy their packaging, right? But some wearable watches which is coming in the country or as well as the world, what you have to do is you don't always go with all the probes which is there in a particular watch. You test them probe by probe with the intended usage of that probe. If your probe is intended for reading your oxygen saturation, or as we call it as percentage oxygen availability, you will test your watch with one probe available on X number of patients as a POC. Similarly, you will check it for your weight management if you are seeing, or heart rate, or ECG. And then when everything is proven, you will combine it here. So it is probe by probe that you have to do it level by level and then combine it in one system and then again do one pivotal study and then comes the answer.
Yeah, thanks. I think we are we are at 5:26. I think we'll take just few questions. I think there is one question about path for SMD or AI based software for FDA approval and Indian market. I think you just answered. Image diagnostic is one such example of software as a medical device.
And they have asked for a particular question on SAMD guidelines. Apart from adhering to IEC 62304. So you can please send your question to Pranita. We will need to look at what product you are talking about. I'm really sorry that with this question being sent, we are not able to answer. Send your question to the IIT SINE team and we will get back to you about this.
Yeah, yes. I think we have also answered what are the steps taken after my prototype is ready for commercialization. It's from IIT, but we have already covered that, how we have to proceed once your prototype is ready. Sugam portal, CTRI registration, ethics committee, we have already chalked out that, steps or flowchart. Should we manufacture our implant in an ISO 13485 certified facility to use in clinical trials?
Yes, this also we just addressed when we were addressing the previous question, that whether you do a lab study, packaging study, preclinical study, or a clinical study, you have to ensure that the quality of products used, the guidelines used, the place used, batches have a consistency in their step-by-step approach. If your batch changes, if the quality changes, then it is as good as somebody else doing it.
Right. It's a question from Mandar. They are importing urine catheters and they're selling in India. Should we go for a CDSCO license? Mandar Tilak.
So Mandar, if you guys are having export-import license and you are buying and selling it in India, best is to have your CDSCO license as the distributors in India. Because in the last 2 years, there has been a rapid change in the guidelines as well as expectations from traders also from CDSCO. So please do look this up and you should go for it before you get into any kind of a
Yes. I think just a couple of days back, I have seen one document on this where probably they need a permission now from CDSCO. So you will have to go and register yourself there and take permission there. So Mandar, you are already in touch with us. We can discuss this as well. Regulation for wearable device, you have touched upon that.
There's one more thing. For example, now initially it came that ethics committee should be registered, then devices. Now there's a draft guidelines on CROs also, other than Sugam and CTR registration. We also have to officially register and receive a number. Though it has not yet become final because of a certain number of back and forth going on between the research community and the CDSCO government, but there will be soon that also. So yeah, you're right in addressing this, Pranita, saying that it's best if they have their licenses run.
Yes. A question from Anil Nair. We are artificial hand manufacturer. The final fitment of the hand will be done by a clinician. Does the clinician become a part of the QMS as third party?
So they will be a part of your site level work. So you will have your team, which is going to be the innovation team. Then you will have your manufacturing team. You will have your QA team, and then you will have your site level team. The doctor will become a part of that. Please ensure you have delegation logs for each level of this, and the scope of activities are clearly defined. Also, there was a question about confidentiality, so I'll address it here with this. You have to have a confidentiality agreement as well as a complete agreement, contractual agreement with every party that you work with, both with the clarity on financial terms as well as clarity on the scope of work that they take up, and the rights of your patent versus your your privacy per se, because this document will also be useful in your indemnity and insurances.
Sure. I think Anil is our incubated startup. So Anil, we can discuss this with Meena in one-on-one meeting, which we're going to organize for SINE incubators. Mohit, again, there is a question, but Mohit, again, you are part of, he is a pre-incubator here at SINE. So Mohit, we will also have a one-on-one discussion where we can discuss the to-do list, of course. Then I think Bhasi, actually, Sukumaran, we are a VR-based stroke rehabilitation program. We are developing the second prototype. QN, what quarter one, what QMS protocol to follow? Is it quarter two? We are using Oculus VR headset and developing the VR games. Any concerns regarding this in terms of manufacturing regulation? I think it's a gamification based rehabilitation. Nowadays, there are a lot of such devices. Yeah.
So as long as you don't call yourself a medical device company, or you don't put down any particular therapeutic claims, you can still run it as your Oculus VR cafe. The minute you want to put down a therapeutic claim or say that we are a rehabilitation for E, B, C, D, and these are the results we intend to have, then yes, you will need to go for a process regulations, not for a product regulation, because product, I believe you are importing them. So process regulation, yes, you will have to follow. Quality management system is your Bible. No question asked.
So Meena, in case if they are claiming that there is a medical, because we know a couple of in our network, which are medical devices per se, they call themselves as. Yeah. So they will have to follow the entire regulation as medical device.
Yes, Pranita, they have to, and they should, because sooner or later, like BD Syringe is a big company, right? And they have been selling in the country for ages now. But the moment 2021 regulations came in, even they had to go and start doing a lot of their phase 4 clinical trials and submit all the data to the regulators. So they should abide by the regulations, because right now they may be able to swipe it under the carpet. Nobody is watching, but day by day, it will become more and more stringent, and then it becomes an unnecessary hassle.
Sure. I think we also have a question from Sunita Patel. She's a IIT alumni, and I think we have answered on the AI image diagnostic. However, classification of AI software, I think that kind of a thing will need a discussion, right? Because they're going to diagnose a tumor. So what kind of a risk and other thing, will have
it would need a discussion.
Yes, it needs. So Datta K, I think he raised hand for a very long time. So I'm going to unmute you, and we are going to, I think we'll take just this last question. Datta, please, unmute yourself.
Datta and Akash, we both are in the same room. So the question is, we are currently in wellness, like we are claiming it to be a wellness product. We have an app and we connect to a third-party watches, something similar to Apple Watch, and we use it for like non-pharmacological health interventions. So we'll be using things like heart rate and steps to see what is the user's activity level. And we will motivate the user to, improve his activity level. And this is just one example. So we wanted to understand like if any specific regulatory requirements will be applicable for us.
Okay. So for example, if I'm to take a real life example, you are a platform similar to like Ultra Human.
Ultra Human, Healthify Me.
Healthify Me. And what you are doing is you have given the device, wearable device, to the patient. The patient's data comes to your algorithms, and using those algorithms, you are giving them advice on how to be.
This like simply like rather than us giving the watch, they can purchase directly, like something like they can purchase Apple Watch directly.
Okay.
And secondly, as of now, we don't have complex algorithms. It's just simple data cleaning and providing it to the user. Like it's not a machine learning as such.
So what information do you provide them back?
It could be as simple as like how many, like whether the user was consistent to perform a specific number of steps over a period of time, or like heart rates, like has it gone above certain thresholds during a period of time.
So you are only helping them clean their data. You are not drawing any inferences of their data.
As of now, yes, stage 1.
Yeah. So as of now, you do not need any further, what you can say, regulations, abidance. But the moment you want to, say that, hey, I saw your data. This is your data. This is the clean data wherein I'm just removing, because right now what you're doing is you are performing the data management work. And data management work, until unless has a significance of statistics attached to it, does not need to be under any specific regulations. But the minute you want to call out the statistical significance of it, yes, then you will need to be regulated.
Which regulation specifically will apply?
Yeah, so if you are saying that I'm going to be using this as a user interface and then draw out the information, then along with the product that the patient is buying and your app is being used, you will need to take an approval on your algorithms only. For that, you will need to follow the software guidelines, for which IMDRF guidelines are very, very clear. They function on the ISO 18113, if I'm not wrong, and they give you a clear picture on how to function. So that you will have to follow, apply to CDSU, and get your license available.
Just one clarification question.
Datta, can you just send us a question to us, and then we can get it answered, because we are past.
Sorry, we are
5:30.
past time.
Yeah, we
Sure.
have to close it here. Okay, but yeah, do write to us. I've put in email addresses in the chat box, sign@sineitb.org. If you want to apply for BIG and any questions related to that, you can also write to us on the sign_BIG@sineitb.org. If you also would like to get connected with Meena, you do write to us and we will connect you with her. The recording of this session will be available on our SINE IITB YouTube channel. We will also send you the link via the email response for attending in response to attending this session. So thank you so much for such an interactive session and participation from all of you here. And Nilesh, I think Nilesh, I know you have raised your hand. I'm just going to request you to write your question to us so we get that question answered. Some of the questions in the chat box where you feel that we have not really addressed it properly, because probably due to the lack of information and then the paucity of time here, because we cannot discuss much here. But please do write to us. We'll try to get all your questions addressed from Meena. And Meena, thank you so much, for such an extensive discussion on this topic. You showed us the website portals, how step by step you walk us through the process. That's something sometimes it's really, really important for innovators which are at early stage. Sometimes innovators who have product made and they don't know how to approach the regulatory, and there are other people's available, consultants available. Sometimes they're not really, they're not able to, don't have enough funds, to approach these people or even get things done by help, get their help, right? So this is where I think kind of information which you shared, would definitely help our, participants for this, or audience for this session. But we definitely would also like to have your help for our incubators, while they also would like to discuss. Some of them were here and I did not take their questions because, probably we are going to discuss with them. So all of you, we are going to address your question. And thank you, Meena. Thank you for your time, your support. And thank you all for attending this session and your participation. And
thank you, guys.
and have a great evening. Thank you. And please stay tuned for our next webinar. It would be also even interesting. Do apply for BIG call if you have an interesting idea. It is open till 16th August, 5:30 p.m. Do reach out to us for the same. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys.